that is the story of the Toya Maru train ferry. The captain has mistimed his departure because Typhoon Marie has not passed.
On the morning of September 26, 1954, the Toya Maru, a state-of-the-art ferry, ventured on a journey across the Tsugaru Strait. Despite the crew's experience navigating unpredictable weather, they were unprepared for the tiptoeing nightmare, an approaching typhoon. The storm's ferocious winds and waves overwhelmed the ferry. A distress signal was the last communication received before the Toya Maru capsized and sank, claiming over 1,000 lives. The aftermath of this disaster, one of Japan's deadliest maritime tragedies, was captured in haunting images and eyewitness accounts. This is their story, the story of the Toya Maru incident. The sky is dim and the wind is blowing hard. People are rushing to board the Toya Maru, a large and modern ferry that can transport trains, cars, and passengers across the strait. The ship is scheduled to depart at 2:40 p.m., but it is delayed by an hour and a half due to the bad weather. The captain, who has been sailing this route for years, decides to wait for the typhoon to pass before setting sail. The Grand Ferry is 118.7 meters long and 15.85 meters wide, and has a gross register tonnage of 3,898 tons. It can accommodate 1,128 passengers and has a crew of 120. It is equipped with radar and other advanced navigation systems and can travel at a speed of 20 knots. It is considered one of the finest ships in Japan and has even been used by the emperor himself. The ship is divided into several decks, with different facilities and amenities for the passengers. There are cabins, lounges, restaurants, bars, shops, and even a cinema on board. The ship also has a large cargo hold where trains and cars are loaded and secured. The ferry soon gets crowded, being boarded by a diverse group of people from different walks of life, with different reasons for traveling across the strait. Some are businessmen, some are tourists, some are students, some are families, some are soldiers returning from the Korean War. They have different hopes, dreams, fears, and secrets. They are unaware of the fate that awaits them, as in less than 4 hours, most of them will be dead or missing. A journey that would end in disaster, claiming over 1,000 lives and leaving a nation in mourning. But how did this tragedy happen? What went wrong? The Japanese Titanic. The name Toya Maru means Lake Toya, which is a caldera lake in southwestern Hokkaido. The lake is famous for its scenic beauty and hot springs, and is a popular tourist destination. The name was chosen to reflect the ship's role as a bridge between Hokkaido and Honshu, and to evoke a sense of comfort and relaxation for the passengers in order to make them feel connected and entrusting of a safe journey. A flag hoisted on the ship being the emblem of the Japanese National Railways, or JNR, which was the state-owned railway company that operated the Toya Maru. JNR was established in 1949, after the end of World War II, to unify and rebuild the war-damaged railway network in Japan. JNR was responsible for providing passenger and freight services across the country, as well as connecting Japan with other Asian countries via ferries. JNR was also involved in various social and cultural projects, such as promoting tourism, education, and sports. Toya Maru was a train ferry, which means that it could transport trains as well as cars and passengers across the strait, a narrow piece of sea that joins two larger seas. The ship had special doors on either sides, called bow visors, that could be lowered or raised to create a ramp for loading and unloading vehicles. The bow visor was operated by hydraulic cylinders and had a watertight seal to prevent flooding. The ship also had a movable ramp inside, called a link span, that could be adjusted to match the height of the shore facilities. The link span was connected to tracks on both ends of the ship, allowing trains to roll on and off easily, since it was not your regular ship but a ferry. The Toya Maru had 4 passenger decks, each with different classes and facilities. The first-class deck was located on the uppermost level and had spacious cabins with private bathrooms, lounges with sofas and tables, restaurants with fine dining options, bars with live music and karaoke, shops with souvenirs and snacks, and even a cinema with a large screen and comfortable seats. The second-class deck was located below the first-class deck and had smaller cabins with shared bathrooms, lounges with chairs and magazines, restaurants with buffet-style meals, bars with drinks and snacks, shops with basic necessities and gifts, and a small theater with movies and shows. The third-class deck was located below the second-class deck and had dormitory-style rooms with bunk beds and lockers, lounges with benches and radios, restaurants with simple dishes and drinks, bars with vending machines and games, shops with cheap items and books, and a recreation room with sports equipment and board games. The fourth-class deck was located at the bottom level of the ship, near the cargo hold. It had no cabins or facilities for passengers, but only for crew members who worked on board. It had a mess hall with basic food and water, a galley with cooking utensils and appliances, a laundry room with washing machines and dryers, a storage room with tools and spare parts, an engine room with machinery and controls, and a bridge with navigation equipment and communication devices. But none of this could be of use, as everything would be reduced to shambles in a matter of hours. What led to the disaster? The captain of the Toya Maru was a veteran sailor who had been navigating the Tsugaru Strait for years. He was confident in his skills and his ship, and why wouldn't he be? He believed that he could outrun the typhoon before it reached the strait. Seems sometimes believing in yourself is not the right choice. To make matters worse, he also felt pressure from the passengers, who were eager to reach their destinations, and from the JNR, who wanted to maintain their schedule and reputation. He ignored the advice of the Weather Bureau and the Coast Guard, who warned him to stay in port until the storm passed, storming off into the sea as the hero of a film without a happy ending. Those first ferries launched right after the war were not equipped with sea gates to help them endure storms. This was because the vessels rarely put far out to sea, and engineers believed that the ship's pumps could easily handle any rushing water that flooded the lower deck. They did not design the ship to deal with typhoons, however. The lack of a sea gate and the inability of weather forecasters to accurately predict the location and speed at which Typhoon Marie was approaching the islands were key factors in the loss of the Toya Maru. The captain thought that the typhoon had already moved away from the strait and that the weather would improve soon. His judgment turned against him as he was about to witness the deadly Typhoon Marie. Typhoon Marie was one of the strongest and most unusual typhoons ever recorded in Japan, almost as if fate intervened in the proceedings of causality to cause destruction and grief. The typhoon had formed in the Pacific Ocean on September 21st and had reached its peak intensity on September 24th, with wind speeds of over 200 kilometers an hour or 124 miles per hour. It had then moved westward, hitting Honshu on September 25th, causing widespread damage and flooding. It had then turned northward, entering the Sea of Japan on September 26th, where it regained strength and slowed down. It was expected to cross the Tsugaru Strait around 5 o'clock, but it lingered over the sea for more than 24 hours, creating a massive storm surge and huge waves that battered the coastlines of Hokkaido and Honshu. The Toya Maru encountered the full force of the typhoon as it sailed into the strait. The ship was rocked by violent gusts of wind that reached up to 99 miles per hour, and by waves that reached up to 15 meters high. The ship's radar and other navigation systems failed due to water damage and power outage. The ship's engines also malfunctioned due to saltwater intrusion and overheating. The ship's bow visor and link span were torn off by the waves, allowing water to flood into the cargo hold, where trains and cars were loaded. Everyone broke out into a state of panic. The cargo broke loose from their moorings and smashed into each other, creating sparks and fires. The ship's stability was compromised by the weight of the water and cargo, and by the force of the wind and waves. The passengers and crew members on board the Toya Maru faced a desperate situation as they realized that their ship was doomed. They tried to find a way to escape, but unfairness of life, they were not going to have it easy, facing many obstacles and dangers. Some of them were trapped in their cabins or lounges, unable to open the doors or windows due to the water pressure or the fire. Some of them were injured or killed by falling objects or flying debris. Some of them were suffocated or burned by smoke or flames. Some of them were electrocuted by live wires or short circuits. Some of them managed to reach the upper decks, where they hoped to find life jackets or lifeboats. However, they found that there were not enough life jackets for everyone, and that many of them were damaged or missing. They also found that most of the lifeboats were either destroyed or inaccessible due to the tilt of the ship or the waves. Some of them tried to use wooden planks or barrels as makeshift rafts, but they were either swept away by the current or smashed by the waves. Some of them decided to jump into the sea, hoping to swim to shore or be rescued by other ships. However, they found that the sea was freezing cold and full of debris and oil. They also found that there were no other ships nearby, as most of them had avoided sailing in the typhoon or had turned back after seeing the distress signals from the Toya Maru. Some of them drowned or froze to death in the water. Some of them were hit by floating objects or sinking vehicles. Some of them were attacked by sharks or other marine animals. After suffering all these horrors, the silver lining was a few of them surviving by clinging to debris or floating objects, such as lifeboats, life rings, or parts of the ship. They endured hours of cold, hunger, thirst, pain, and fear, waiting for help to arrive. They also witnessed the horror of seeing their fellow passengers and crew members exit the mortal plane and depart without any return. The Toya Maru sank at around 8:30, about 4 hours after it left Hakodate. Out of 1,309 people on board, only 159 survived. Most of the bodies were never recovered from the sea. The aftermath of the disaster was a time of grief, anger, and change for Japan and the world. The Toya Maru ferry disaster was not only the deadliest ship disaster in Japanese history, but also one of the worst maritime disasters in the world. It shocked the public and the media, who demanded answers and accountability from the authorities and the JNR. It also raised awareness and concern about the safety and reliability of sea transportation, especially in the Tsugaru Strait, which was a vital link between Hokkaido and Honshu. The government launched an official investigation into the cause and responsibility of the disaster. The investigation revealed that human error, mechanical failure, and natural disaster all contributed to the tragedy. The captain of the Toya Maru was blamed for his poor judgment and negligence in sailing during a typhoon. He was also criticized for his lack of communication and coordination with the shore and other ships. The JNR was blamed for its inadequate management and maintenance of the ship. It was also criticized for its lack of safety measures and emergency procedures. The Weather Bureau and the Coast Guard were blamed for their inaccurate and delayed forecasting and warning of the typhoon. They were also criticized for their insufficient rescue efforts and coordination. The investigation also made several recommendations to prevent such a disaster from happening again. It suggested that sea gates should be installed on all train ferries to prevent water from flooding the cargo hold. It also suggested that radar and other navigation systems should be improved and checked regularly. It also suggested that weather information and warnings should be updated and communicated promptly and clearly. It also suggested that safety regulations and standards should be enforced and followed strictly. It also suggested that rescue operations and equipment should be enhanced and coordinated effectively. The JNR has always apologized for the incident and paid compensation to the victims' families, hoping to compensate something which can't be compensated. It also implemented some of the recommendations from the investigation, such as installing sea gates on its ferries, improving its navigation systems, and strengthening its safety measures. However, it still faced public distrust and criticism, as well as financial difficulties and competition from other modes of transportation, indicating an irreparable void of trust in public. The disaster also inspired some major changes in Japan's infrastructure and development. One of them was the construction of the Seikan Tunnel, which connects Hokkaido and Honshu by rail under the sea, which was seen as a safer and faster alternative to ferry transportation. The construction of the tunnel began in 1971 and was completed in 1988, holding the record for the longest undersea tunnel in the world. The Toya Maru ferry disaster was a tragic event that changed Japan's history forever. It was the result of a combination of human error, mechanical failure, and natural disaster that led to the loss of over 1,000 lives. It was also a catalyst for change that led to the improvement of sea transportation, the construction of the Seikan Tunnel, and the creation of various works of art and culture. It was also a testament to Japan's resilience and recovery from adversity. The Toya Maru ferry disaster is a story that deserves to be told. It is a story that we hope you will enjoy and learn from. Thank you for listening.